Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Hot Mess Podcast, episode 9. Today we got a great episode for you. We're going to talk a little bit about the latest trending thing on Twitter. It was a big story, at least it was trending on my Twitter, about a girl who, basically, make a long story short, she was not vaccinated as a child. I think she was a baby the last time she had some vaccines. Had some issues, went to the hospital. Make a long story short, they told her, well, we can't treat you unless you get vaccines. She gets 3 vaccines. 10 minutes later, swollen up like a balloon, goes blind, dealing with all sorts of stuff. So this just brings to question vaccines, and I've seen a lot of stuff out there. And so I thought we'd just dig in to this question, that are vaccines safe? So because we're parents, know some of you guys are parents, and I think during COVID, all of this, we were tackling this question of risk versus reward, and there was a lot of peer pressure. And even now, I feel like there's pressure and misunderstandings from both sides. So let's get into it a little bit. First off, we'll say, man, that was weird. Little bug scared me right there. Did you see it? It's like a tiny spider.
I didn't see it.
He was crawling towards me. Okay. But
We know your fear of spiders.
yeah, I don't like spiders. But when we had our daughter, we had to actually, we have an interesting story. So our first child, Aubriella, she was born in a birthing center. Mm-hmm. Stephanie did it like a champ. No drugs. No nothing. Did you have Tylenol or ibuprofen? Did you get ibuprofen for it? No?
You can't take ibuprofen when you're pregnant.
Oh, that's right. Did they give you Tylenol? Did you get Tylenol?
When my contractions first started, I took Tylenol to try to help so I could still sleep.
Which was like a drop.
But
in
it
the
doesn't.
bucket.
It doesn't. Tylenol doesn't really work for me anyway, and it definitely wasn't going to work for that kind of stuff. So no, I didn't take anything.
Intense.
It was intense.
And it was a long night. She went into labor, I think, what was it, like 10:30, 11?
I don't remember, because I don't remember when early labor transitioned into full labor.
Yeah, it was in the evening, I know.
It was a long time.
And we spent the whole night
exhausted.
at the birthing center, and then
yeah, because I didn't sleep all the night before because I was already contracting, but just not real labor yet. It was just pre-labor, basically.
And then Sunday at
then that day,
Aubriella was born.
Yeah.
But
anyways,
in doing that, one of the things they talked to you about is they talked to you about the vaccines and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And so, at that time we had to do our homework. For a little frame of reference, my mom is a pediatrician, so I'm very, very familiar with a lot of things in the medical field. And one thing that, I guess we kind of have an unfair advantage, because we could call my mom, ask her opinions on certain things. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to do our own research, and I actually wanted to do my own research in this when we were having Aubriella, because, everybody can tell you what to do, but ultimately your child is your child. And so, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, I want to be right on this one. And I think for us, that was the biggest thing, is just wanting to make sure we're making the right decision. And so, we weighed out risk versus reward with a lot of this stuff, and decided that, yes, absolutely, the reward of, the risk of the vaccine versus the reward of the vaccine, the comparison, it just made a lot of sense for us to go ahead and do that, because there are these diseases around. This is one of those things. I know if you have parents, or if you're older, you may have that polio. Carlos has it because he.
Is it polio or smallpox?
Smallpox. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The smallpox vaccine, and the smallpox vaccine, now we don't give it out because there's hardly anyone. It's almost extinct,
It's basically eradicated.
And so the risks of the vaccine
is higher
than
than your chances of contracting
of actually contracting
a mature virus. Yeah.
So, but with these other things, with like meningitis and pneumonia, I think the other one actually, I know the girl from Twitter, it was meningitis, pneumonia, and tetanus.
Oh, I thought it was a hepatitis. You're right.
No, it was
tetanus.
Wasn't. It was
tetanus.
I think I said hepatitis before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was those three, and those three are all very still common. Issues. And my mom's had patients or known of people directly that have had these things and have had things go south, and it just makes a lot of sense to be protected. And I think this is one of those areas where people can look at like one small part of the picture. For example, this scenario, 10 minutes after this girl gets these things, has all of these terrible reactions. And so the gut reaction is to say, vaccines, it's a problem, which in this case, yeah, probably true. But also what, some people aren't considering is, she shouldn't have been giving these in the first place because of the issues that she had going on. A lot of places, if they'll ask you if you're not feeling well in the first place, but this was one of their hospitals deal. They said they wouldn't treat her if they didn't, if she didn't go through their protocol. And so, I think when I look at that, I was like, man, this is ridiculous. This is terrible medical care. And that is one thing that I do want to say, guys. I will say it's good to do your own research because my mom's a doctor, and I've had a lot of good experiences with doctors. But did you know what one of the biggest causes of death in America
freak people out with this statistic.
This is a crazy stat, but it's actually medical error.
Yeah, malpractice.
Medical malpractice is one of those big things. That and I'm not saying that to freak everybody out, but it's important. I think a lot of times we want the easy way, just tell me if this is good or tell me if this is bad. And we don't want to take the time and actually, let's learn about this. Let's learn what we should know. But I think it's just important to spend a little bit of time to know a little bit about health, because it is something that everybody is going to have to deal with at some point in time. And me being around it my whole life, it's just been, I don't know, I really hadn't thought about all the benefits that I received, except that, medical bills were cheaper for my parents because I was so accident prone as a kid, and even adult. I've been accident prone. I've actually been pretty good lately, not getting in trouble, but it's important to just do a little bit of research in these things, and to not just, I don't know, not be so black and white. I don't know.
Well,
you help me out with this.
I'm always for becoming informed, right? But there's this saying that you find what you look for.
Yeah.
Right? So if we're using vaccines as our topic and I want to research them, what I don't want to do is only research one side. I don't want to do that for any topic, but this one that we're talking about, right? So I don't only want to research what's already supporting my opinion. So let's say I look at this instance of this story and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was a reaction to vaccines. That's horrible. Vaccines are more dangerous than I thought, which could be true because maybe you thought nobody ever has an adverse reaction to a vaccine. Okay. So then I decide I'm going to go research this more. But all I look for is adverse reactions to vaccines, right? If that's all I look for, then yes, that's what I'm going to see, but that's still a skewed view of the outcomes of vaccines, because that doesn't tell me the percentage of, vaccines necessarily that do good, right? That are doing what they're supposed to do. All it's showing me is the negative. And then vice versa, right? Like, if there's a new vaccine coming out, or you're just really not sure about something or whatever, because there's multiple ones too that we have to, as my kids get older, it's like doing it again, and there's, risk reward and stuff. Looking at it again and being like, oh, well, of course they have to have it because, they say that they do it. It's an optional one, right? I think HPV is one of these for later. And so again, I need to research both sides, right? So I'm fully informed, and I'm not just feeding into whatever my own fears are, my own biases, or my own comforts or whatever. So don't just say that you're researching something if you're just looking for something to reinforce what you already think. Yeah. That's not healthy for any research project, but definitely not for something like vaccines, which is really important because it can be life and death, right? Because there is a lot going on there. So yeah, definitely don't let your fears dictate though.
Well, it just seems like there's been like in recent, I think in part due to COVID and the rapid release of that vaccine, I think that kind of got everybody like thinking about, man, we've just been putting this stuff in. We haven't thought about it. And
yeah,
I think that's, I don't know. I think
it
that's
upped
when
the ante for the anti-vaccine. Because there's been people who are anti-vaccine for, I don't know. I'm sure as long as vaccines have been out, right? Sure. Because it's a scary thing, this idea of putting this stuff in our bodies. But, just because it's new or scary or we don't know, it doesn't mean that we...
As someone who, definitely was on the pro side on, hey, let's vaccinate our kids. Let's, this year we just got our flu shot recently.
That's right.
Mainly because we
had the flu a couple years ago.
Kicked our butts. And then we were like, you know what?
Ever since then, I've been like, okay, September rolls around.
And our son, and mother-in-law, right? Was Tammy and Ethan. They both didn't get it, even though they were in a whole house full of people.
No, they didn't get the flu.
They didn't get the flu
because
they had
she'd been vaccinated and he had the flu mist. But those of us who didn't have it, we all got sick. Rough. Anyway,
but
it made me a believer. I was like, oh my goodness, yes. even if I still get the flu and I'm not as sick, I'll take it.
Well, and I think one of the things too before was like, sick. I think your dad had said something like, "Oh, the vaccine, like before it had made me sick," and or something like that. He had said something like that. And I've heard that before. And to be honest, like, hey, I've gotten that mist before, and all of a sudden you got a little runny nose.
It could just be because you just inserted something into your nasal passages.
Could be that.
I mean, I had the flu vaccine, and I felt fine that day, but the next day I was feeling a little off for like the morning. Was it the vaccine? I don't know. Could have been. It's possible. It could have been. Who knows what? There's too many variables in my life for me to really determine that. But even so,
still worth it.
Didn't compare anything to how sick I was when I had that. So anyway, for us, risk versus reward. It's not it's not a required vaccine. It's not on any kind of list for me to travel or whatever. I have to have it. But for us, it makes sense for us to have it. And I know I don't have any known allergies to any of the ingredients in these things, So for us, it makes sense to vaccinate against the flu every year now.
Absolutely. But I remember, when the COVID vaccine came out, and specifically like the mRNA technology, I was like, this stuff's new. This has never been tested. We don't really know.
Devin was very anti
I was
COVID vaccine.
I actually did get a vaccine. I got the Johnson & Johnson, but I was very much not in the whole. I was not in the whole pro, hey, let's go out, let's force people to do this community. Because if you looked at COVID, the COVID survival rate at the time was like, what, 98%?
I don't remember. I don't have the
it's super duper
stats.
high. It's super duper high. So the fact is that if you were looking at
Risk versus reward.
risk versus reward,
At that time, you
time-
considered the risk higher than any reward for yourself.
yeah, at that time and actually currently.
Well,
too.
because you were within the group that's like
But then I also
barely
know-
affected.
But then I also had friends and people that I know who passed away from COVID.
yeah.
So it's one of those things where, for me, I don't actually think
In that
it was,
case, the questioning made sense to me.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was so new, because, we're talking about big pharma and stuff all at the same time, so
When
there
it was
was a
such a
lot of
money-making
variables
deal.
running around,
Yeah.
right? So it was harder to put your trust in something that's tried and true because it's not tried and true yet.
No.
Right? So the risk is higher for an unknown reward at that
Yeah.
point. And so in that case, it made sense. At least I could understand why some people were like, no, I don't want to have
Well,
it.
and we've
I
seen-
could also understand why some people were like, no, absolutely going to get
And
it.
like-
I could understand both sides.
Well, and like our kid, like we both were like, no, our kids aren't going to get that vaccine because
Yeah, we never did vaccinate them with the
no,
COVID-19.
because they don't need it, and
Yes.
the risk versus reward, there's way more risk than reward.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It
For us,
it,
it made no sense for us to give them that when the chances of them being seriously ill, like
chances of them
the
getting better,
danger
getting
to
COVID
them
and
was
getting
higher
better is-
from the flu than it was from COVID-19.
Yeah, exactly.
So it didn't make sense for
and
us.
so chances of having issues from this drug introduced that we don't know about
Mm-hmm.
is actually greater in that sense than any danger that's from the thing that it's trying
Mm-hmm.
to protect them from. So it's just one of those things where I think that, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of lack of reasoning. So one of the things I think that is the biggest issue with this is just people's inability to not like critically think, not, be able to like step away and be like, let me think about this for a second. Let's think. Does it make sense for this or does it not? And I don't know. I don't know why that's such an issue right now, but I think a lot of it has to do with not being willing to just say, hey, maybe I should do a quick Google, or quick research and see exactly, what that risk versus reward paradigm looks like
Mm-hmm.
and where that fits. So I think when we do that, then pretty easy to make a decision that works.
Yeah.
And I would never, and I don't, the thing that I think bothered me a lot with the whole COVID thing is just the like demonizing anybody who questions it. Like, oh, how dare you question
Yeah.
the vaccine, or how dare you, why is how dare you question the vax? How dare you question any of the
You don't care about
stuff?
other people.
Yeah, you don't
But on
care
the
about
flip
people.
side, that's the same thing that people who are just anti-vaccine across the board say as well,
Yeah.
right? They're saying, or they're saying people are saying that to them, right? Like, you just don't care about people. How could you think that way?
You don't. Yeah, exactly.
It's the same. Like, they're saying the same things.
Mhm.
You
You don't care about that small percentage.
Yeah.
the population.
Again, like, my answer to that is, once again, don't look for something to reinforce what you want it to say. Right. So for instance,
Yeah.
if you are anti-vaccine, like all the way across the board, you don't want your babies vaccinated, and so forth and so on. You don't want to follow the typical schedule, right? Because
Yeah.
there's a typical schedule of vaccinations
Yeah.
that they follow, right? So, and you're trying to make this decision, do not start your search with how many babies have died from whatever.
Yeah, that's
Don't do
probably
that
not the best way to
because
go about
again,
it.
that's a skewed version of the vaccination history. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not
It's not the whole picture.
It's not the whole picture. And if you want to tout yourself as someone who's researching, make sure you're getting the full picture so that you understand what you think is an acceptable risk. If you don't think one adverse reaction within 200,000 is an acceptable risk, well, I can't really argue with that then, can I? Because you don't think even that small of a risk is acceptable, right? In comparison to the benefits, right?
Or
I don't
maybe
have
1 in a million
I
or
don't
whatever
have
it is.
specific stats. Okay,
Yeah.
so like once again, I didn't come like I didn't know what we're talking about, so I didn't come with stats. But what I'm saying is, it's still the question is still risk versus reward, right? So the reward, which we know of, are set vaccines, right? These are ones that we've been using for a very long time,
Yeah.
right? We know what the reward is, that you're not going to get these very detrimental diseases, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be immune against them,
That's the
even
goal.
if the chance isn't terribly high that they would get them anyway. But now we know for sure you're not going to get meningitis and die, because you will die from that, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get, so these horrible, horrible diseases, if I give my child these vaccines, I know for certain they will never get it, as opposed to whatever percentage that if I didn't vaccinate them, they might, right? So it's that benefit of knowing for sure they'll never get it versus what are the risks of actually taking the vaccine, right? I know what the possible reward is, or I know what the for sure reward is. What's the risk? Okay, so how many adverse reactions have we seen to this particular vaccine? That's the risk.
What's the what's the
exactly
percentage chance that
what
may
is it?
affect them?
And I think if you look at that, it's always very, very, very low.
Well, and I think there's other things too that we can look at, like health wise, because I know RFK, I think he's kind of I think he's a little bit more on the anti-vaccine. I mean, he has issues with certain things because he talks about the rise in autism and things like that.
Yeah, but that was debunked. Like, to see any actual causation.
Was it?
It was debunked. Yes. Feel free.
I have
Actually,
no
go
clue.
back and check this one out, friends.
I haven't done the research.
Right. The guy,
so
the
if
guy
you disagree,
who published,
tell us in the comments.
the one who published, like his studies, had to go back and remove them.
Really?
Because it was shown like it was not substantiated on real data, right?
Yeah, and that makes sense.
And I'm not saying it's not. Okay, because I'm not doing the studies. Okay,
Yeah.
and I know a disc, like I do research, right? Like this, I had to do this in graduate school, so I know what it takes to be able to make the claim that something causes something else. You can almost never, and I do mean almost never, say that, because the amount of data that has
You
to
need
be
to have a lot of data.
repeated outside of other variables to be able to say that is crazy. Like, you really can't, which is why even for like smoking and cancer, you'll see like may lead, even then you see the type of like couching language that they give, because it's almost impossible to truly say one causes the other.
It's really hard to narrow
So
it
for
down.
someone to be like, oh, for sure, vaccines are leading to autism because look, everybody's vaccinated and look at the growth.
Look at autism.
So correlation does not equal causation, right? We were
Yeah.
talking about this earlier. And again, I'm not saying it doesn't. Okay, and hasn't been like my pet research project or something, so I haven't delved into all the information. But what I'm saying is, don't listen to like one, oh my goodness, never listen to one study ever.
No.
Ever. Don't find one study of 12 people and decide, or even one study of 1,000, because what makes this stuff legitimate is that the tests can be done multiple times and within a certain range
Well, we
of
also-
the same information needs
I
to
was
come
gonna
out.
say,
So
we
you
also
can't
know
just
some of those studies
don't just
are-
be pull it. Don't cherry pick
Well, it's some-
your
I
sources.
think
It's
sometimes-
dangerous.
And I do think to give some of the anti-vaxxers like credit in some of this stuff is that some of these studies are skewed in a particular way.
Sure.
And I can understand that because there's financial incentive with things like that. I know
Absolutely.
there's been people that have tried to talk about that with the COVID stuff without getting into like detail. We know human nature. If we're wanting to try to prove something, it is human nature to try to read into it and try to make it say what we want to say. And that's why it's important to try to gather as much actual information as we can. I was trying to remember what was that study that Anthony did. Remember Anthony?
I don't remember.
He
I know.
was
I
doing?
remember Anthony. I don't
Yeah.
remember the
Well,
study.
I don't remember the study, but I remember it was a college level study at the university that he was going to, and
Oh, he was like a research assistant.
yeah, he was working on this, getting paid to
Okay,
do this,
yeah.
because his degree is in math, and I remember the professor that was heading this up, the data wasn't saying what she wanted it to say, so she was telling him, like, go back and get more, because that's saying the opposite of what we're trying to say. So, I mean, it's just, when I heard stuff like that, I was like, ooh, man.
But that's why
You got to watch out for this kind of stuff.
That's why I'm saying, like, if you're going to do research, don't just, I mean, if you want to do real research, then you're going to specific sources, which most people aren't going to want to read because it's very boring, because they're laying out data for you, and it's not meant to sound pretty. It's just throwing it all out there. It's in very specific types of medical journals where other people are having to check their stuff. Like, it's serious stuff. It is not a mom's blog.
No.
God bless them. I appreciate the opinion, but I come at them realizing this is somebody's opinion, which then might cause me to go research, right?
Yeah.
Make me start thinking maybe in a different way. And I think that's valid. I think that's a worthy use of whatever platform you have. However, it is not scientific data, right?
Yeah.
That it is not that.
Well, I think that's the purpose of what we're doing, is just trying to get you to think.
I'm not giving scientific data.
We're just trying to get you to think.
I'm simply telling you what isn't scientific data.
To think critically about these things, and
I do appreciate that about people who are, anti anything that's accepted, right, or normal, is the willingness to go against the grain and think for yourself, right?
Absolutely.
I'm just saying, don't just assume because you're going against the grain that automatically means you're thinking for yourself.
Yeah.
No,
Or
it just means you're
automatically
automatically going against what everybody else says. So why? And is it a good reason? Or is it like my husband, who, if everybody else wants to do it, he suddenly doesn't? Like, he's like, no, it's not.
Totally true.
No, it's not cool anymore. And I don't like it anymore because now everybody does.
Not totally true, but yes, I am individualistic.
You are much more like that.
Yeah, I guess so. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe a little bit. But anyways, hey, tell us what your thoughts are about this. We, for the most part, think that vaccines are safe.
We're pretty hip to the
pretty
vaccine
pro,
for the most part.
For the most part, definitely we still do our research, and we ask questions and things like that. And Stephanie's a big questions asker. One time we went to a doctor for my daughter.
A pediatric endocrinologist.
Yeah, pediatric endocrinologist.
Endocrinologist, yes.
Yeah, we went to
basically hormone stuff.
Yeah, she had some bad readings, partially because she had blood work done right after she was sick, and so kind of things were all wonky.
Yeah, levels were off. They couldn't explain why. So they sent us to a specialist doctor,
So
basically.
anyways, making a long story short, went to a specialist, and he just told
he wouldn't
us,
answer my questions.
Yeah, Stephanie was like, what does this mean? He's like, just go get this test.
Get more tests. Like, just... Yeah, like,
and
we're just going to... I'm
nope.
like, okay, well, why? Why do we need more tests? Like, what does this indicate? What's best case scenario? What's worst case scenario? What are we worried about? What are we looking for? Because I want to know, right? I want to understand to the best... Like, I'm not asking you to suddenly, make me understand as though I'm a doctor. But there is a way to allow me some understanding of what our concerns are, because that's what I was asking. What are we concerned about?
Guy did not want to do
refused.
He wouldn't say anything.
To answer any of my questions. And I told my our pediatrician after that, I was like, I will never go see him again. I don't know why you suggest that he, but it was because he was literally the only pediatric endocrinologist in the entire Rio Grande Valley.
So if you want to be a pediatric endocrinologist in the Rio Grande Valley, you'll have business.
You'll have business, because that guy, I don't even remember his name. He was horrible. So yes, I ask questions. I want to understand. I want to know, so that I can make the best decision that I can with that information. So.
And actually what we did with that is we called up my mom. We used the good old mom phone call, and
Right.
said, "Hey, what's what are the possibilities here?" Which actually she was like, "Well, she had diarrhea before. Oh, okay. Well, she's probably low on this just because her levels could have been off because she was sick. Said I would just wait and get some work done here in a few weeks, which is actually what we did afterwards. And fine, she was okay, no problem. So it is interesting.
The point was, though, I wanted to know. So
The
I'm
point is that
not
you
someone
wanted
that just accepts something because
Yes.
someone says so or whatever. I'm like, well, Peachy King, but help me understand. I
Yeah.
want to understand.
Yeah, that's what we're all about in every area of life,
For the most part.
for the most part, except if it comes to cars.
Yep. I don't want to know.
Don't want to know. Fix it. Or actually stuff in general.
I want to
like
know very
anything
basic.
mechanically.
Like, how much of this do I need to take care of
Yeah.
and how much can I not have to worry about because
Yeah.
you'll take care of it?
which is
Yeah.
most of it.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's okay. That's how we work. Team. So if you've enjoyed this, guys, give us a like. If you haven't, give us a dislike. Let us know what you think.
Maybe let us know
Any
why you
any
didn't like it.
interaction. We just love interaction. So let us know what you think. Hopefully you're enjoying these. If you have something you want to talk to us about, go ahead and comment down below. And we'll catch you next time. Until then, have a good one. Adios.
Bye.